Are you guys ready for another episode out there of the 5-Minute Bark? Today, again and again and again, we're having guests from Canada. They're invading our podcast here in the United States, and we've got Leanne Mallett here, coach, environmentalist, activist. She's done it all. We're going to jump into that later because I got some great stories for you on that. And she's also worked with another guest of ours, Christina Berkeley. So she's going to be sharing a little bit of that as well. So, but mainly today we wanted to talk about stepping into transitions. And I love that. So Leanne, instead of me saying all the good stuff about you, why don't you share the world all about you first before we go on? Sound good?
Yes. Well, thank you very much for having me, Dennis. I'm really excited. Yes, I started out my career as an environmentalist. By day, I was a high school science teacher. And in my off time, I was determined to save the planet. And so I started getting involved with protests and ended up in Clayoquot Sound during a large protest to save ancient forests out there, sitting in a tree for 3 days to protest clear-cut logging there until I was removed by a very friendly police officer. And I spent 7 years of my activism really on the front lines of making big statements in the media with protests. And that really took me to a protest in Northern Ontario where we stayed in one area that was being logged for 3 months to make sure that we were raising our voices around that issue. And that took me into nonprofit leadership. And I was an executive director of 2 different nonprofits over 15 years and led them to a lot of success. And I had my children in my 40s.
Wow.
And I had Noah when I was 42, Ruby when I was almost 44, and that completely changed my world. And I stepped out of my job as an executive director because I wanted to be able to have a job that was flexible. And I heard another one of your guests talk about the idea that coaching is a flexible job where you can be an entrepreneur and be there for your kids. So for the past 3 years, I've been training as a coach. I'd already done a lot of leadership work as an activist, and then starting to create a practice that where I work with people, and the people I seem to attract are people that are stepping into some kind of transition. They are shifting from one job to another. They're switching from one life zone to another. They're doing something where it feels like that big step is a doozy. And one of my superpowers is being able to see people's brilliance and make them see it too. And so if they're able to tap into that brilliance, then they're able to make those big steps, those big first steps, and do it in a way that feels really good to them and is part of a new journey. And that's a real thrill for me.
Awesome. I want to rewind you back, though, to when you're a teenager, okay? Obviously, you're when you're doing something like parking in trees to stop things from, stop life, stop change. There's something that you're doing that's very powerful. You're very, very engaged in change, engaged in doing things. Mm-hmm. What gave you that drive to say, I'm gonna save the world. I'm gonna do my part. Okay, so as a human being in this space and time, we're all obligated. As a lot of people don't realize it, we're all obligated to contribute our own well-being to this earth, right? And you're doing that.
Absolutely.
At a young age. What taught you that value?
My parents taught me that value, and they don't believe that. My dad passed away 8 years ago, but my mom has always said to me, "How did you end up this way?" And I say, "It was you guys, because my parents helped people." When they were in trouble, whether it was a family member, whether it was a friend, they were always the first to step up and help. If you had a problem with your car, my dad was the one that came and, helped switch your tire. And there was just this feeling that in a community, you're supposed to help each other. And my mom had stories of my grandmother. My grandparents were they were really poor back in the Depression. And she would invite other people in for dinner if they didn't have their own food. And so I think there was a culture of that in my family, and I think I was kind of born that way. And so my first activist inspiration was seeing Bob Hunter and Paul Watson, 2 of the co-founders of Greenpeace, kneeling on a big piece of ice to protect a baby seal during the Canadian seal hunt. That was my first activist letter, and I was 9.
Right. And
so I think it was just this feeling of always wanting to make the world a better place and always wanting to help.
You know, it's amazing because, I mean, obviously at 9 years old, you're already, and I kind of feel like even at 4 years old, I had the same kind of drive, right? Mm-hmm. That just something that just kind of ticked me. And I'm writing a book now on myself, and I had to go really kind of revisit my brain at 4 years old and what I did and what was that first tick? What was the first thing that made me who I am now? I mean, essentially, I'm still this 4-year-old. From that point on, I'm this 4-year-old that wants to do certain things in life. And, you know, that one thing that ticked you, I mean, obviously maybe it was that letter or that watching that guy doing that saving of the seal that just essentially catapulted your life into a new angle, right? Forever.
Well, yeah. And you know what was great about, Bob and Paul is that both of them became my mentors. I ended up meeting my heroes in my 20s and working with them. And that to me was a dream come true. And it was also something that just felt really logical. Paul runs the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society. So he's out on the open seas, saving whales and enforcing law on the oceans. And Bob was one of the first ever member of Greenpeace in the world, and later became an environmental journalist before he passed away. But even before that, before I was 9, when I was a kid, I would, if I found a stray dog, it always came home to our house. I think that we're all born, and I have 2 kids now, and we're born wanting to help.
Right.
We're born wanting to make a difference. And I think the problem is that our culture tends to reduce that in people. And my idea is that, as you said, we all live here on the planet. We all have a responsibility to the earth and to each other.
Yes, exactly.
To take care of each other. And I think that it's just, we have to remember that. Yep. I think we're born with that, and then it dissipates as we grow up in this culture.
In the last 2015 and 2016, I've really kind of made the decision that every word I speak from this point on has an opportunity to inspire people. You know, in this podcast right now, when we're talking here and now, it's my duty, not only to myself, but to the people listening who have given their time for me, to try to inspire them in some sort of way and try to help them understand that this is what I did when I was younger that made me this way I am. And my goal, obviously, with these podcasts now, and more, I'm really trying to get more intense about it, is to dig in deep and find out how can we, give that spark to others that haven't gotten that spark yet. They still don't quite know what they're doing, or even as entrepreneurs, sometimes you're still not quite completely focused. And it's just really cool to see, like, you took this one day and now it's just been your life, and
yeah. And the amazing thing was that I had no idea what I was doing when I got started doing environmental protests. Yeah. I knew that I was really passionate. I started finding other people. I was a teacher, and during my summer break, I did door-to-door fundraising for Greenpeace. If you want to learn a way to get good at sales, it's door-to-door fundraising. So I was doing that. And then I started meeting other activists that were passionate like me. And we just put together a volunteer group and started trying to raise awareness around things that meant a lot to us. And I think that part of the magic is I never worried about knowing how to do something.
Right.
I wanted to do something, and then I figured it out. And as we did that, what I became really aware of is that all of us have this amazing power. We really do have the power to change things. Most people don't believe that, but I personally, through the work that I've done, both as an activist and as a teacher and as a coach, have really had the power to change things and change people and change policy and change laws. And if everybody had a sense of how powerful we actually are, the world would be a very different place. And I think that that's part of what I do as a coach, is just remind people of just how powerful we are. When we're kids, we think we can do anything. The sky's the limit, right? If we want to be Superman, we just put on a cape and off we go. And we're, like Spider-Man and all of these famous athletes. And whatever that dream is real. And to me, that essence, that always stays with us. And it's just a process of remembering that.
I love it. That was just so beautiful, because it's so true. Like, we have this obligation as people, and if we're participating at our fullest and we're giving it our all, the education grows for everyone, right? Everybody understands it. And you were talking about how we are all have a duty that I'm trying to find out how I was going to say it, because when we are sharing and we're contributing to each other, if you realize in life, we've learned how to do mathematics, we've learned how to fix our cars, we've learned how to be a coach, but we've never learned how to use our minds, right? And I think more than ever before, people are understanding that if I practice using my mind in a giving way, if I practice using my mind in a gratitude way, if I practice using my mind in ways that haven't been practiced, really. I mean, essentially, church was kind of doing that, but that's a process, that's a procedure, and it's not really. They're not really sitting there and telling and getting in deep and intense with you on, hey, this is how gratitude works, and this is how helping your neighbor works. This is how giving your last piece of food works to somebody. That there's never been this clear education on that, and no practice, right?
No.
And in this day and age, we're now starting to actually see that this practice leads to amazing things, leads to Superman-like minds, Superman-like actions, the impossible becoming possible. And, it's, I guess a lot of people are using the word wake up. We're waking up to this.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's how I feel, definitely. And I think part of it is that when people think of the word activist, or they think of an obligation, it seems like something that's too big. Right? Like, if I'm going to be an activist, do I have to drop a banner off the side of a building? Do I have to do some huge act? And so they tend to feel like they can't make a difference. To me, the idea now is how do we expand the idea of activism so everybody feels like they're part of it? And part of that is that our small actions make an enormous difference. The little things that we do every day, how we interact with the person at the grocery store, how we interact with our kids and our husband or wife or partner, the people that we meet every day, the way that you spread kindness. If all of us, say everybody in North America decided today, from now on, we're all going to be kind. It would change the entire world.
Absolutely, in a big way.
And I think that, and it can start really small. And so to me, initially when I was doing activism, I would do some, I'd do a tree sit, or I would be up in Northern Ontario doing a big, a protest on a road, and people would come to me and say, "Oh, thank goodness for you and what you're doing. That's great. I could never do that." And I thought, that's not what I was trying to get across. What I was trying to get across is that anybody can do this. We all care. And I realized that in a way, those big actions make people feel like, if they can't commit to going and living in a developing world for 3 years to dig wells, then they're not doing anything. And we can do things every day with the way that we treat the world, how we buy things. All of those little things are things that make a big difference.
I'm recently had a conversation, I think it was just a few days ago, with a friend. We were on for 2 hours, and we were talking, and he's talking about his son and how he's very electronic. And I was kind of talking about how people are walking zombies. They're just so busy being on their phone, and they're just not participating. And I'm like, my first instinct is kind of like an activist. It's kind of like, how do I stop people from, being zombies? How do I stop people from going these directions? And I'm realizing that I can't stop them. I can't stop what's progressing, because a lot of good comes in different waterfalls from it, right?
Oh, for sure, yeah.
And he's talking how brilliantly smart his kid is now, and like it's just amazing. And it's like, I know I've had several friends that have been very activists about freedom and speech and the American dream and so on and so forth. And they just find themselves backed up against a wall, and now they're just kind of taking it back. And myself as well, and maybe you share the same thing, is like, I'm just interested in sharing that now with the next person next to me, versus trying to be open to the public with it, because it's like the person you're helping is the one that is giving you the most resistance. Because I am an entrepreneur. I'm going to be fine whether the government charges 70% tax or 50% tax. I'm going to find a way around it. I'm either going to move to Puerto Rico. I'm going to do something different that's going to allow me to keep my money. And I probably pay the least amount of taxes out of most, right? But here I am finding myself very adamant about government and change and business and this, and like, it doesn't affect me. It really doesn't. And I'm like, why am I putting all this energy into helping them when they don't want to be helped? They want to be part of the system or part of something, or they want to criticize what you're doing, which is actually helping them. So I'm kind of really learned to take a step back. And you probably maybe share that same thing with your actions as well.
Oh, for sure. Because when I started out, I was angry. I was really angry for a long time. And that anger was really great fuel for, standing on a logging road in front of a truck. And I think that it was inspirational, but it certainly did not translate well into being a mom. It did not. That did not work at all. And also, as I evolved as an activist, I realized that it's not black and white. There's not the good guys in the white hats and the bad guys in the black hats. It isn't a spaghetti Western. We're all in shades of gray. We are all in this soup together. And we have to learn how to have conversations. The idea that everything is in conflict, that's old school activism. To me, that's old school. Yep. The new school activism, is collaboration. Yep. Is being able to speak to people that otherwise you would never think of being in the same room with, and being able to have a reasonable conversation. And I think there's still need for a conversation like Black Lives Matter, for raising your voice, for disturbing conversations to bring your issues up front and center. And I think there's also a really important time for having collaborative conversations and reaching out to people that you otherwise probably wouldn't see eye to eye with. And for example, climate change is something that blows people's minds in terms of their fear of, the planet burning up and all of us not being here. And that's going to require collaboration.
Yes.
That's not and definitely it requires people speaking up, doing those marches, bringing it to the public eye. And it also involves everybody getting involved and feeling empowered, not feeling overwhelmed. And I think the new school of activism, the new story is being able to see each of us and our brilliance, and being able to have conversations even if we don't agree.
I agree. And you know what? It's funny because it's whether it's you're fighting for the savior of the planet or fighting for, a race to help them or whatever. It doesn't matter whether it's business or anything to do with our planet. It's all the same template, right? It's all the same template. So when you're coaching somebody or you're working with a business, it's all the same template. And it's like, you can't force your employees to do this. You got to just kind of let them learn or help them in ways where you're not demanding them, so to speak. It's got to be an open conversation, like you're saying. The idea of modeling it. If you're a grim-faced person who is constantly thinking about the death of the planet or all of these terrible things, how many people are going to be inspired to join you? People don't want to feel that constant sense of loss and anger, and they may. That's natural to think, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed by thinking of all these problems. But I think Emma Goldman was a famous anarchist, and she said, if I can't dance, I don't want to be part of your revolution. And I think that there's a joy that you can have as well, and I think that pulls people in as well. I think the grief is necessary, and I think that people feel strongly because we are at a tipping point in our culture and the way we treat people on the planet. But I also think that you have to model that it's amazing to feel disempowered, and we can do something, and it is important to connect and collaborate. And that to me is going to be the way we change things, not through just yelling at one another. That's not gonna do it. Isn't it amazing that you're now in this current time and space, you're stepping into transitions coach when you had to step into transition yourself? I mean, I got you to talk about this for 20 minutes and realized that you had to step into that transition yourself. And now you're teaching that, and you probably didn't even realize that.
I didn't. And see, that's the funny intuitive thing, because my enormous transition was becoming a mom. Right. And because before that, I was an activist and my life was about the movement. And that was my commitment. Yeah. And when I had kids, suddenly, my ego was, got smushed, because it became about them in large part. And I also realized it had to be about me as well. You can't lose yourself. Most people do lose themselves in parenthood and then find themselves again. Yeah. And my transition ended up being a way that I can offer support and guidance for other people to come through theirs. And it's, I think that people, whether they have kids or don't, whatever they do as an activist or an active citizen, we're all going through transitions. And it's that magic of being able to bravely step forward that is going to change the world for everyone.
Yeah. I mean, and a lot of people are activists in a lot of ways. I mean, even joining the military is, in a sense, that way, because you're getting told to do things that you really know you kind of, if you really think about it, you shouldn't be, why should I be going to war and killing people I don't even know that didn't even do anything wrong to me? You know what I mean? It's like, I'm being forced to chop down this tree, even though I don't want to chop this tree down. I know it's going to ruin our forest, but that's my paycheck.
Sure.
Yeah.
We have a connection. There are a lot of, as you said, there are a lot of military personnel that come home with stories, and they're talking to us about how this wasn't right to be there. Ethan Gideon McCord was on the ground in Iraq and came back with stories that he was telling about the things that he had seen and how he objected to the war there. And people end up with these experiences where they say, listen, I was of that, and I think it was wrong, and I want to change things. And it's the same thing if I'm talking to somebody who is, up logging in an old growth forest. I have talked to people who said, listen, I would rather do something else, but the economy here doesn't allow me to. I have to feed my kids. I have to pay my mortgage. And if we can get into the idea that we've got to be able to solve things in such a way that it lifts all of us up. It can't just be that we say, sorry, that's wrong, and you're just going to have to figure out something on your own. That's easy for me to say if I'm not depending upon that particular economy. We have to get more sophisticated, and we have to get smarter, and we also have to care about the people on the so-called other side. And to me, there is no other side.
Yeah.
That's what it is at the end of the day. We're all on the same side.
It'd be interesting to be in a world where, let's say, obviously, a very few amount of people decide that we go to war, and then but they don't go to war. They go sit in their, White House or whatever, their mansion and whatever. But these millions of people go to war, thousands of people go to war. And if those people met on the field and said, listen, I don't want to kill your children. I don't want to kill you. I don't want to kill you. Why are we doing this? That's really how this world has to work, because it's one person at a time. It's those 1,000 people that actually meet and have to do the killing, the shooting, they have to make that decision, because they're the ones being told to do it, but they're the ones doing it. And our world is in that place right now where you have that decision to make that change or to make that, like you said, conversation happen.
Yes. Because
if anybody has open ears and listens, then they're not going to want to kill somebody or ruin their family or take their job away or so on and so forth.
Well, no, and as you said, if all of the political leaders in the world who decided to move towards a military action had to send their kids first,
right,
it would be a very different world.
Yeah.
Right, because it just wouldn't happen.
Right.
Because when moms and dads all love their kids the same. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, nobody wants these things to happen. So we have to be able to get into that. The problem with the military in a lot of cases is it's becoming almost a video game when you have drone strikes, and it's less and less connected with that face-to-face understanding of what's going on. Yep. And to me, we have to remember that, if somebody killed my child, that would change the way I viewed the world. Mm-hmm. If somebody killed my husband in a drone strike, that would be something that changed the way I looked at the world. And it wouldn't be in a good way, not right. necessarily. So you're right. We have to think about how it would be for us. It's right. Putting ourselves in other people's shoes, which is also really critical.
It's so important to then go back and learn how to immerse yourself in a moment, an actual moment, because we can easily be switched into a moment of rage, right? Mm-hmm. If you are now developing triggers, and this is where coaches come in, developing triggers that would stop you in these moments and help you stop to think, right?
Well, yeah, there's that stimulus and response, right? And then there's that pause in between. And, I haven't been a good pause person myself. I've got a hot temper, especially when I feel passionate about something. But I do find that as I get better about thinking, really it is, this has been, we've been taught this since we were little, think before you speak.
Right.
Take a moment. And those are words of wisdom, because oftentimes, and as our culture moves more and more quickly, it's a 24-hour news cycle, and people are, there's this constant need for information to feed all of this. We move and we speak without thinking. And I think it's really important to have that pause and to think about what our impact is, and to also remember that when we care for others, and if we come from a philosophy of thinking about what our impact is on others, that's going to come back to us. When we send kindness out in the world, it comes back to us. Whether you're helping your 85-year-old neighbor to make sure she's got groceries when there's a snowstorm, that's as much to me activism as standing on a logging road. Right? It's all about how we care for each other and how we put kindness and love into the world.
When you think of people, you always often think of the small things they do, not the big things they do. It's the like you said, the bringing of the groceries and so on and so forth. It's the small things that always count. Mm-hmm. And we're all trying to go on the big podium and change the world in a big way and force things and rush things. And we really find out, right?
To go viral, right? My son said, he's 8, and he said, I want to get a YouTube channel.
Go viral.
So go viral. And I said, well, and what would you get from that? Right? Because the question is, like, why does he want that when he's 8? And he said, because I'd have more friends. Yep. And you think, oh, well, that's something that everybody wants, right? Yep. Like, everybody wants to be loved. Everybody wants to have more friends. And then we say, oh, well, what else could we do to have more friends? Yep. That isn't necessarily a YouTube channel. But, there is, our children are living in a very different world. It's very fast paced. It's very externally acknowledged. Yep. Everybody's looking for their like. Everybody's expecting to become famous. And I think that makes it even harder to use that pause, to think with kindness, because of the speed of the world right now. And to me, one thing I'm trying to share with my kids is being able to care about others and to care less about that external, how many likes you get on Facebook or how big your video gets. It's really, the important thing is how you treat others and the good that you do in the world.
One of those good examples is like on Facebook, it's your birthday and everybody starts liking, or they just put happy birthday, or, but then you got the friends that call you, or they send you a nice kind video that's just like, hey, you did great things this year, or whatever, so on and so forth. It's like, so going back to, I want to have a lot of friends. Like I've just recently tried to coach somebody that they're trying to reach out to 20 million people and get all these people and awareness and this. And I said, well, what if you just had 1 or 2 or 3 people that were really inspired by you, they were engaged by you, they wanted to help, and you helped them back? What happens to those 2 or 3 people? They are going to go out and tell 3 or 4 other people. Yeah. And those people are going to believe them because they've experienced your experience. And it turns into this big network that's of high quality. But when you go and have a great conversation with somebody over dinner, and you just had a really good occasion where you shared and you loved each other and you talked, and not mean in a relationship way, just in a human being way, do you not sleep better at night by having that, oh God, I just came home from that. But if you go out and you're just in a networking, crazy, running around kind of thing, you just kind of go beg empty. Yes. So,
and I think that's the thing as well, is that people expect now, I got to go big, right? Like that's a go big or go home. And to me, like, as you said, that you have to start somewhere, and you don't start out with 20 million followers. No, you start out with an idea, and there's that great TED thing where it says, how to start a revolution, and the video is this one guy doing this wild, crazy dance, and then there's the first follower. There's the first guy that joins him and starts dancing too, and then there's usually a second person that comes in, and then all of a sudden the whole crowd is in, But that first and second follower, they're important people. And they're important people to treasure when you're doing your work. And it's also important to be those people. We can't all be leading the dance all the time.
Nope.
Right? Like there's people have got to lead and other people have got to follow. We don't all have to be the person with the 20 million viewers. And the big things are built on piles and piles of small things. Mm-hmm. That's just like this idea of instantaneous fame going viral has created, I think, a really false sense that you don't matter unless you've done something huge.
Right. And
that's just not true. Yeah. Everybody matters.
Awesome. They do. I love it. Well, we're already at that time. If you believe it or not, actually, we're 10 minutes over.
That was fun. We could do this all day.
Yeah. So my guests appreciate you coming on, and the 5-minute mark appreciates it. So what can my guests and the 5-minute mark do for you? Is there anything you want to share with them, or let them know about finding you in some sort of way?
I'm very easy to find on Facebook. It's Leanne Mallett, so it's Lea space ANN, and then it's Mallett, Mallett, and my website is leannemallett.com. What people can do for me is to go out and do an act of kindness.
Awesome. Pay it forward.
Absolutely.
Pay it forward. Awesome. So if you're looking for somebody that's amazing, she's been coached by Christina Berkeley. If you've seen some of the episodes, she's amazing. So now she's created another amazing coach out there whose main focus is to help you step into transitions. And you've, by default, heard her talk about how she's transitioned herself. So she's living by her own words here today. Leanne Mallett, thank you so much for coming on. This is awesome. And I love your background. It tells a lot about you, the footprint and the pictures over there in the back wall.
This is what life is now, and it's really good. And thank you so much. And thank you for all the work you're doing to share great ideas around the world.
Oh, it's awesome. I try to explain to people how amazing it is to have a podcast, and I try to encourage it. And it's not about the huge following. It's about what it does for between us, here, even like you're just the one person. You've inspired me and I've inspired you.
Absolutely.
And it's, that's really almost it really matters. The rest just kind of is gravy, I guess, as Tiger Woods says, from here on it's gravy. And, whoever listens, if they enjoy it, great. It's only going to resonate with certain people, but it resonates with us is the bottom line. Right. And that's
absolutely.
And that's what enjoyed.
And you never know where your ripple ends up going.
No. I just recently, got rediscovered to a friend. I taught him how to ride a bike in a professional format. And now we've reconnected 25 years later. Now we found ourselves both in the same area of inspirational speaking. And so you don't know where the ripple's going to go. You don't. No.
So that's why any little act of kindness is going to make a difference, and it could make an enormous difference that you don't even know about.
Absolutely. All right, listeners, this was it. Leanne Mallett here today. Life coach. Is it life coch? We didn't even actually talk about that. It's coach, transitional coach, a coach, human coach with a little nature in her, right?
Yeah, a lot. Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. So go hug a tree.
Absolutely, for sure.
Yep. And put some water on it, some ingredients, and let it grow. Talk to you soon, everybody.
Thank you.
One critical thing highly successful people do is organize their goals and write them down. Success doesn't just happen to you, it's created by you. If you are ready to create a roadmap to greater success, you may want to listen to what I'm about to say. We have developed an online success platform that offers 6 critical tools for creating and implementing your success plan. If you're ready to turbocharge your personal development and success in every area of your life, it's time for you to join Team Cody Dog by visiting CodyDog.com. That's CODIEDOG.com.